What's going on, gearheads? How y'all doing today? Hey, I got a little project that I'm getting ready to start on. I figured I'd do a little video of it and see what y'all thought. I picked up this flathead from a swap meet a couple years ago, and the initial intent was I was going to powder coat it and take it to these cruise-ins and car shows that I was setting up at and advertising when I was planning on doing the powder coating thing full time. Since then, I've decided to go a different route. I'm not going to pursue powder coating as a career or as a business opportunity. I am going to continue to keep the equipment and still do my own personal stuff and help out with a couple buddies. They got projects and stuff that they want done. But I've had this flathead sitting here since then, and I've been trying to figure out something to do with it, and I think I finally come up with a plan. Basically, what I want to do is make a wall sign for it, or out of it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to mount this to the plywood. I'm going to powder coat it first, mount it to the plywood, and put me a glass signage up and bottom, on top and bottom, and have it to where that's going to be lit via LED. This will be the first time I've done anything like this. And it's going to be a little more in depth as far as there's going to be some sheet metal fabrication. There's going to be some, obviously, the figuring out of how I'm going to set up the LEDs and all that. But I figure it'd be a good YouTube video to show off. So with that being said, we'll jump right into it and go from there. Alright, so what we got is I've went ahead and centered the head on the plywood. Got it to where it's where I like it, where I want it to be. And I've clamped it down, or put clamps on the outside corners to kind of hold it from moving around. I'm going to go through and drill into the plywood through all the head bolt holes, because that's how I'm going to end up mounting this to the plywood. I'm thinking that once I get all those drilled and all that squared away, once I put the head back on there after it's coated, it'll be that much closer to being centered. I won't have a whole lot of adjustments to do. So we're going to go ahead and do that now, get those drilled out, and go from there. Alright, so what we got here is a bunch of T-nuts put onto the back of the plywood. I flipped it over. I had to go through and open the holes up a little bit more because I had measured for the all thread and not for the diameter of the T-nut. But if you're not familiar with what a T-nut is, get to where we can focus on this thing. There we go. It's just a threaded insert with barbs on the sides that bite into the wood once you hammer it in. I think it's more used for like furniture and whatnot, but it's going to work good in this application, I believe. So like I said, I've got all the holes opened up for the T-nuts. I just got to go through and nail them in and go from there. And this is going to make a mess as soon as the first one I hit. Dropped one. Alright, so now we got all these T-nuts put in. Let's get this head cleaned up and put a little color on it. Make it look a little bit better. Alright, so since we got the flathead cleaned up and powder coated and looking a lot better than what it did, the next thing I'm going to do is go through and build some C-channel out of sheet metal. So basically what it's going to be is going to come over, down, back, up, and over. And I'm going to do that in 3 sections. I'm going to do it, at the top, at the bottom, and then in the middle. And the one in the middle obviously is going to be where the flathead is going to sit. And then I'm also going to come through and make some sheet metal angle that comes down the sides. Alright, so since we got all the sheet metal bent, what I've done is I've attached this center section with C-clamps to the front side of the board, and I've flipped it over to where I have access to the bolt holes from the back. I'm going to go through and take a drill bit that fits snug as I could get it in there and tap it to mark the center for each one of these. Now I do have a 2x that's underneath here. It's just wide enough that as I go down I can slide to make sure that metal is staying flush to the bottom of that board, or the bottom of that plywood. Alright, so what we got to do now is go through and make bolts for each one of the head bolt holes. And what I'm going to do that is use 3/8 all thread. Hence why we got 3/8 T-nuts in the back of the plywood. And then on top of the all thread is going to be a polished acorn nut. And what I'm going to do to figure out the length of the bolts basically is just set a flat edge across 2 or 3 bolts or bolt holes, measure down to the top of the plywood, and then add 3/8 of an inch. And the 3/8 of an inch is just going to take into consideration the length of all thread that's going to be inside the acorn nut. Alright, so what we got here is just the glass for the above and below panels of the on the flathead sign. And basically what I've done is I've just went through and put vinyl down, and I'm going to come back through with some Rust-Oleum spray paint, semi-gloss black, and paint over it. And then I'll pull the vinyl up once the paint dries, and that will be on the inside of the sign. That way it'll, so basically it's reading backwards now. But when you're looking on the other side, it reads correct. Alright, so as you can tell, I had to do some stuff off camera, unfortunately. I ran into a couple of issues and had to kind of back up and get a new game plan to put together to make this thing work out. What ended up happening was I had the RGB version of this rope light for the top and bottom. And I got it all ran, and when I went to trim it to fit into the sign, once I got it ran and plugged it back up, I realized after I trimmed it, it had dead sections to it. You know, it come in over here as far as the power source was over here, ran around, then we went down behind it and come back up and ran around this way. Well, I had dead sections over here, I had dead sections over here, and then all of my greens just completely quit working on those. I played with it for a little bit, tried to see if I couldn't get it to come back around. I figured it was just a short circuit from where I'd cut it, but I never could get it to come back. So unfortunately, I had to go through and order some new LEDs. And these, as you can see, are working out a whole lot better. They're not the same style. They are just the individual LEDs. It's got, I think, 3 per, every 3-inch strip, or 1 every inch or so. And those seem like they're working out pretty well. I have kind of gone through and test fitted some stuff just to make sure it's still going to do like I'm wanting it to do. And that's the reason you see these corner guards here, or these corner pieces here. That's basically for when I put the edge cap in, you can go through and have something to screw it to, other than just the plywood that's underneath. Alright, so here it is, all finished up and buttoned up. Overall, I'm fairly happy with it. It turned out really well for it's really close to what I had in mind. There are a few things that I wish I had done different, and it's just one of those learning lessons as you go. Now, one of the things is these edge caps. Because when I was making these bends for the 3 sections, I don't have a good way to measure the what angle I'm actually cutting them at or bending them at. And with that being said, you run into what I got right here. And what that is, and you can tell where it's closer at the bottom than, well, hopefully you can tell. It's closer at the bottom here than it is at the top here. And what I'd done, I'd cut the edge caps lengthwise for what my overall dimensions were supposed to be. And I didn't actually go through and measure my out to out. And even if I had, it wouldn't have mattered because my dimension's different at the bottom than it is at the top because I'm not at 90 degrees. So I'll have to go through and remake them and kind of trim them to fit once I get them made. The other thing that I've ran into that I don't know that I'm going to do anything about is right now the glass is just setting in there. There's nothing holding it other than the fact that these bends aren't 90 degrees, and that's keeping it from falling down. So there's a gap underneath all the glass in the sheet metal. My first original thought was, and it's even more prevalent over here, but my first original thought was to go through and hot glue it and try to hold the glass to it like that. But after I ran into the issue with the clips for the LEDs not holding, I didn't want to chance that. Plus, I want to be able to remove this glass if I need to and access the LEDs underneath and change them out if the need comes up. So anyway, I appreciate y'all watching the video. If y'all have any questions, feel free to hit me up in the comments. I'll be more than happy to answer anything you got. And then from there, I appreciate if you leave a like and just let me know what you think. Y'all have a good rest of the day. Later.